So hello, everyone. I'm Julie Broadway, president at the council. We're delighted to have you with us for our 2021 awards ceremony. I'm really sad that we're not all together in person so that we can high five and hug and do all those fun things that we like to do at our awards ceremony, but we'll try to do that as best we can virtually. So we're delighted that you're all with us. We have two very worthy recipients this year for our Rollout and our Hickey Award. So we have some things to talk about and some speakers that want to say a few words in honor of those people that are receiving that award. So with that, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about each of these awards, and then I'm going to call on some people to talk. And I've got a couple more people still coming in the room, so let me see if I can get them in here. Here we go. Well, so the Rollout Award is our first award, and each year the American Horse Council honors a member of Congress who has greatly supported the American horse industry. And this award is presented in remembrance of longtime AHC past president Rich Rollout. This is an award that Brian and Cliff and I and the board really work hard on. It's a challenge. Brian talked earlier about our congressional scorecard. It's really challenging to try to take stock of those congressional members and those who really lean in to help us with the things that we do and how they support us. So I am going to say that we are just so absolutely thrilled that Senator Susan Collins from Maine is our recipient this year. And if you are not familiar with her, she was elected in 1996, and she has earned a reputation as an effective legislator who works across party lines to seek consensus on our nation's most important issues. For the past 8 consecutive years, she has been ranked the most bipartisan member of the U.S. Senate by the Lugar Center and Georgetown University, which is a major accomplishment. She serves on Transportation and Housing Subcommittee. She is a member of the Aging Committee, the Intelligence Committee, the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. And she's just involved in so many ways. She was born and raised in Maine, and she and her husband still reside in Bangor. And they run a 6th generation lumber business back there in Maine. So she's a very worthy recipient. And I asked Brian Brindle, our Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs, to say a few words about Senator Collins and what she's done for us. So Brian, I'll hand the floor to you for a few minutes.
Great. So you could have described it better by talking about high fives. If anyone serves those, it's definitely Senator Collins. She really is the quintessential bipartisan / swing vote. Whether you're getting your news from the Wall Street Journal or NPR or social media, or regardless of the source, you'll hear stories about her as being a swing vote on issues like tax and most recently, obviously, the infrastructure package. Specifically for the horse industry, she's been a great champion. For starters, she's a natural ally. Julie talked about her family owning a lumber business for the past 6 generations. So she really does get the fact that the horse industry is a key pillar of the ag economy. So she's able to kind of place us in a lot of the priorities that she would normally work on anyway as a part of the national agenda. So that's very helpful. Specifically, she's helped out the horse industry by championing guest worker visa flexibility. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, she's able to draft strings to attach to various spending bills, which attempt to give some sort of parameters or guidelines to federal regulators. So we're grateful for that. Not always an easy issue to champion, but she's definitely out front on that issue. She's also been a champion of the Great American Outdoors Act. We talked a lot about that during this meeting, as well as in other communications throughout the past year. Truly a landmark land trails and conservation bill, which she's a natural for, being from Maine. And she's also been a champion of the PAST Act on our behalf. So you can see that the diversity of her portfolio really has worked out well for the Horse Council. So Julie, that's really all I have to say about Susan Collins. Can't go on I could actually go on all day
Go
about
on
it,
and on.
but I think we have a statement from her that we can share with our audience today.
Yeah. So before I get to her she couldn't be with us, so she pre-recorded a little video clip for us. Hopefully, I can get it to play. But what I was going to say is that we had asked Don Marin, who is a trustee on the American Horse Council Board of Trustees, who is from Maine. We had asked Don if he could be with us today and he could say a few words because he has a personal relationship with Senator Collins, but he is in North Dakota on vacation, in a Winnebago, traveling across the country, and he didn't have really good internet access. So Don sends his regards and he said kudos to Senator Collins, but he couldn't be here today. So let me see, Brian, if I can attempt to share my screen and play this video. Now, you tell me if you see the video.
All right.
Or not.
Well, Julie's pulling that up. I delivered the award when I was on the Hill about a week ago, and it looks like this, but much larger. So when I was delivering the award about a week ago, this went through security at the Senate, obviously, and showed up as a horse's head on the X-ray machine in security, I guess, the magnetometer. It drew a lot of attention, which was kind of funny. Had a whole posse of Capitol Hill police looking at it. First time I've ever gotten a lot of attention from Capitol Hill police, so it was a good reason to be stopped by them.
Good afternoon. What an honor it is to receive this stunning award from the American Horse Council. Horses are such a vital part of our nation's heritage and our culture. There are more than 7 million horses in the United States, with about 30,000 in my state of Maine. They work, race, and assist with rehabilitation and therapy. They also provide recreation, enjoyment, and companionship. This $122 billion industry drives local economies by drawing crowds to fairs and shows. It also supports farmers, trainers, horse raisers, veterinarians, and so many others. I so appreciate being recognized for my work to ensure the humane treatment of horses. As a senior member of the Appropriations Committee, I annually support funding for the enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act. In addition, I co-sponsored the PAST Act to protect show horses from the egregious practice of soring. Trail access on public land is also essential to those who love to ride horses. The Great American Outdoors Act I co-sponsored will help preserve our national parks, forests, wildlife refuges, and recreational areas. This Congress, I'm an original co-sponsor of the SOAR Act. It would streamline the permitting process for recreational access to our federal lands. The horse industry plays an important role in the economy of communities across America. Just as important, you are a dedicated protector of the welfare of these noble animals that have played such an important role in America's history. I am delighted to continue to do all that I can to support you in your efforts. I hope you have a great conference, and again, thanks so much for this beautiful award.
So congratulations again to Senator Collins. I hope you will take the opportunity to reach out and congratulate her on this award if you have the chance to cross paths with her or interact with her. So is there anyone else in the audience that would like to say a few words about Senator Collins before we move on to our other award today? Anybody? Okay. Well, let's talk a minute about the James J. Hickey Award. We began this award just a few years ago to honor our past president, Jay Hickey, who served from 1993 to 2016. This is given to someone who has been a great supporter of the horse industry and the American Horse Council across their entire career. And I know of very few people that are so deserving of this award as our recipient this year, which is Dr. Peter Timoney. Dr. Timoney received nominations from a number of people and a number of organizations. So we're just delighted to present this award to him. I think most of you know him. You've seen him in the halls at our past conferences, and you've probably heard him speak this week. But as you know, he is a professor, and he's the Frederick Van Lapp Chair at the Equine Veterinary Science at the University of Kentucky's Gluck Equine Research Center. He earned his MBB with honors from the National University of Ireland's Dublin campus in 1964. He went on to receive a number of other awards, and I can't even do justice to all of the acronyms that he has behind his name. But he has been just a stellar advocate for our industry and a wonderful, wonderful supporter for over 40, 50 years. I don't want to insult him by picking a number there, but we're just delighted to give him this award. He serves presently on the American Horse Council's Health and Regulatory Committee, and he is just so deserving of this award. And I asked Rick Mitchell, our incoming chair, who has worked very closely with Dr. Timoney over the years, if he would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, it's a real honor and a privilege to introduce Dr. Timoney. And I have to say, as chairman of the Health and Regulatory Committee for well over a decade, I had the privilege of being able to work very closely with Dr. Timoney. And he was basically our resident contagious disease expert. And if we needed to know anything, Dr. Timoney was there. One of the things humorously that I learned about Dr. Timoney quite a few years ago was that if you wanted Dr. Timoney to explain a situation to you, you might as well take a chair, get a cup of coffee, because you're going to be there for a little while. He's just a fountain of knowledge, and there's always a great anecdote too in the stories that he would tell that were truly educational. And I'm just sorry I didn't have him as a professor when I was in veterinary school, because I think I would have learned a lot more about infectious disease. But I can't really say enough good things about the efforts that he's made to keep our Health and Regulatory Committee and our membership in general informed about what's important about infectious diseases, both within this country and the dangers of those from importation. So, thank you, Dr. Timoney, for all your efforts over the years. I personally have considered a real privilege to work with you.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Now, Cliff Williamson is our Director of Health and Regulatory Affairs. So he's the liaison to the Health and Regulatory Committee. And he asked to say a few words because he has turned to Dr. Timoney repeatedly for his insights and his thoughts on various things. And he has always been a great supporter when we've had meetings with USDA and other organizations. So Cliff.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Dr. Timoney has been a critical component to my work with the American Horse Council over the last 6 years. It's interesting that when I took this position, Jay Hickey, who the award is named after, said, "You're going to work with the Health and Regulatory Committee. You should call them and introduce yourself so they know who you are." And I did that. And that was helpful, and it was great to getting to know somebody. But when I reached out to the former individuals who held this position at the Horse Council for the 5 or 6 years previous to me, they all said, "You need to be friends with Dr. Timoney." Every single person who has held this position going back to the 90s, Amy Mann era, has specifically pointed to the necessity of listening to Dr. Timoney, the value of taking his opinion seriously, and the importance of making sure that he gets invited to all of these things. Because when push comes to shove, Dr. Timoney will explain a situation into the ground regardless of what kind of USDA shenanigans are going on, trying to cut the conversation off at the knees. I met Dr. Timoney in person for the first time, I think at a USAHA meeting, and I had already met and interacted with USDA staff, and the staff that were allowed to go to Providence, Rhode Island, I think that year, all met me. Katie Flynn might have been there also. I can't remember that first day, but they all met me in the lobby, and they were introducing me to state animal health officials and things like that. And then immediately saw Dr. Timoney sitting at a table and said, okay. And the entire group shifted. Josie Traub-Dargits, everybody shifted me physically to go sit down and speak to Dr. Timoney face to face. And I could not have been more appreciative for that opportunity. Every time that something of an international or epidemiological perspective has come up, Dr. Timoney has been right there to answer the phone, respond to an email. And anytime I've needed to highlight the professionalism or the respectability of the horse industry, especially in our academic spaces, Dr. Timoney has been a perfect volunteer to put in that seat and showcase how serious we take things, the amount of significance we place on the business of raising and competing animals in the United States, horses in the United States, but also the seriousness that we take our national herd health. And that's a fine line to cross, to walk. We have a lot of people in our industry that really want to prioritize easing regulations, stepping things back to make it easier to do business. We have a lot of animal health officials that want to put as many safeguards in place as possible to make sure that we don't inadvertently introduce a disease into the United States. And finding somebody who can eloquently walk that line between the two perspectives and protect our industry, both in our financial perspectives and health perspectives, has been an incredible resource. And so when we announced this award a couple of years ago, in honor of Jay Hickey, who was the person that put me on the phone with Dr. Timoney the first time, I couldn't have thought of a better individual to receive this award. And it's taken a couple of years, but I sure am happy that we're able to give it to you today. So thank you, Dr. Timoney. We really do appreciate it. And I certainly hope that you don't think that this is us putting you on a ship and pushing you into the lake, because we're not done.
No, we're not done. Not done at all. So I know Dr. Timoney wants to say a few words, and I'm going to get to that, but I'm going to open the mic a minute because I see Katie sitting out there with a big smile on her face, and there's a couple of others out there in the audience that I think have had a really long, warm friendship with Dr. Timoney and worked closely with him. So does anybody else want to say a few words?
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. I have to say, personally, Dr. Timoney has been a huge mentor to me and to many, many, many state animal health officials, and his guidance and information has been critical to advancing equine health in the United States. And he is a huge resource for all of us as state animal health officials in doing what is necessary, what is needed, and all in the best interest of the horse. So I don't think you can meet a better person who's always willing to help us and move us along. And yes, we're not saying goodbye to Dr. Timoney. You better not leave us. And I do appreciate it. And I do think that this is the best award for Dr. Timoney because he has advanced equine health and the American Horse Council and health and regulatory over the years. And we really appreciate all your time and all your dedication and always answering the phone, even when you know it's probably a problem that you have to help us solve. So thank you for your guidance, your wisdom, and support for all of the years.
Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. Anybody else out there would like to say a few words? Okay. Well, Dr. Timoney, unmute yourself. And if you have the award, hold it up so everybody can see. We shipped it to his home so he would get it beforehand. There you go. Stay right there. You got it.
Excellent. This is the award. Can everybody see it?
I think it's so symbolic because it's a big circle, which is about the continuous circle of his role in our industry. It's never ending.
Well, I won't say that, Jimmy. As they say, every dog has his day. But I was deeply honored to have been chosen as the 2021 recipient of the award named after James Hickey. I knew Jay, in fact, for many years, for his whole tenure as president of the AHC, and we got along tremendously well. But then there were times that we had differences of opinion, and both of us being, well, he's a very strong Irish heritage, and now obviously I'm Irish. It's inevitable that there can be sort of differences of opinion, but, you know, it never, ever got in the way of trying to do the very best we could to try and advance our knowledge, our ability to prevent a problem before the problem became a reality. And that's the most important thing to address. And I had a great advantage because when you, Julie, notified me that in fact I was this year's recipient, it was a cause for me to reflect on going way, way back to the time that I first became acquainted with the American Horse Council. And I had a wonderful mentor. And that mentor was the late Mr. Albert Clay, who was one of the founders of the establishment of the Horse Council in the 1960s. And so he used to ask me to accompany him to the annual conferences. And in so doing, he served to inform me of just how important the American Horse Council is as a national entity, embracing all sectors of this industry and all needs that those sectors have had in the past, but equally so today. And so I had the great benefit of, if you like, starting with that experience. And so my interactions with both Rich Rolap and subsequently then Jay Hickey go back to those days. And it made me appreciate the importance of having a national organization to represent all sectors of this industry. Many other countries don't have the equivalent. And as a consequence, they can't speak with a unified force for the industry in the respective political domains. So this is a tremendous, people take it for granted. We shouldn't take it for granted. It's very important. And consequently, I think all of those, both in the legislature at the state level or at the level of the Capitol in Washington, need to accept that this is an organization that deserves support in all its needs. As Senator Collins so eloquently expressed it, look at what the financial benefits, the economic impact that this industry has on the economy in this country. Look at the employment that this industry provides. It has been, is, and will continue to be a labor-intensive industry. And we must do everything we possibly can to preserve that. And for those that are lacking in how significant this is, we need to educate them, because heaven knows there are fewer and fewer labor-intensive industries today than there were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So we must do everything we can to ensure that this industry stays aloft and successful. I've served on the Health and Regulatory Committee of the Horse Council for 31 years now. And during that period of time, there have been very few agendas of national meetings of that committee at the convention where infectious diseases in one form or another do not present themselves. And that's hardly a surprise, because anybody who's knowledgeable of this industry realizes that bar ourselves, human beings, there is no other species that moves more and more widely than does the horse. And because of that, and because of the significance of international movement, diseases can interfere and at times not just restrict, but essentially prevent that movement taking place. And as one person that I knew many, many years ago, who was a very, very ardent breeder and owner of horses, said to me, you know, the day that horses can't move is the day that this industry is going to be crippled. So part and parcel of our mandate, and certainly of my colleagues on the Health and Regulatory Committee, and broader still, other committees within the American Horse Council, we must accept that what we do must strive to enable facilitation of movement, or else we will suffer the economic consequences. Having said that, that movement and those movements cannot unduly endanger the health integrity of our own domestic industry. And there are many countries, some in particular, that rail at the US Department of Agriculture and the United States of America for being overly restrictive in terms of its import policies with respect to horses. They fail to realize the downside if, in fact, we are too lax, we are too liberal, and allow either live animal movements or equine germplasm or embryos free license to be introduced into this country without any reference to the infectious diseases that they could transfer into our domestic equine population. All we have to do is consider what happened in Asia last year, when for the first time African horse sickness occurred in Thailand. It had never been as far east in Asia historically. The furthest went back to 1959, 1963, when there was a panzoonotic of African horse sickness, when the disease escaped from the African continent into the Middle East, as far east as Cyprus, as far north as Turkey, and as far east as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, but no further. Last year, to everybody's surprise, it was discovered in early or late February in Thailand. It spread to 17 of 76 provinces. It caused over 600 cases of the disease. of those cases, 93% of them succumbed from the disease. What would happen if that disease was introduced into the United States? Very simply, it would paralyze our ability to trade in horses for a minimum of 2 years. Can you imagine the economic consequences of that? So the reason I reference this disease and reference that event is, don't ever sit on one's laurels and think it couldn't happen here. We could have said that in 1998 with respect to another invasive agent, West Nile virus. And lo and behold, in August of 1999, it was discovered in humans in New York City. And there were people after that event said, it will never last. Our winters in the Northeast are too cold. I said, don't be so foolish. Look at how widespread the geographic distribution of that virus is in the old world. It's a highly adaptable agent. And what did it take? 2 to 3 years. And it was present in 48 of the 50 states. And it's there still today. All vector-borne diseases, be careful. Once they're introduced, the danger is you'll have to learn to live with them. So I know these are heart-wrenching examples with dire consequences in the case of horses, in the case of African horse sickness and West Nile, because that virus will kill horses too. In the case of humans, purely and simply West Nile virus. So I mention this in the context of the need for a health and regulatory committee that's sensitive to and conscious of the need to work closely in liaison with USDA APHIS Veterinary Services. Why? We need a public-private partnership that epitomizes a level of cooperation and empathy between respective parties of a common need. And that common need is to exclude, to the best of our abilities, the inadvertent transfer of a disease from another political domain, region, country in the world to this country. We don't have to look outside of the Western Hemisphere. We have diseases in the Western Hemisphere that, if they were introduced into the United States, would cause us major problems. Some, not just in horses, but also in humans. So the reason I feel strongly of the importance of the American Horse Council is through its various committees and their activities. We are so fortunate to have an organization that serves as such an effective advocate for the industry in Washington. And we need to support it. And we need to ensure that it garners the necessary financial support, both from the private sector, but also from at the state level and at the federal level, to ensure that it continues the wonderful work that it has done and continues to do. I'm accused of being somewhat verbose on occasions, as indeed Dr. Mitchell has intimated, and he's correct. One gets carried away when one's interested in, and especially one gets carried away when you have individuals such as yourself, Julie, such as yourself, Cliff, and you, Rick, where you have a tremendous sense of commonality of purpose and enthusiasm. And I have been the beneficiary over so many years, having served under the chairmanship of two chairs of the Health and Regulatory Committee, both absolutely positive, extremely progressive, very forward-thinking, and we need to maintain that element, that mentality, and that enthusiasm. Because if we don't, what's going to happen? Who's going to represent the needs of this industry in all its complexity? We may think we have successfully tackled various diseases and brought them under effective prevention and control. That may well be the case. But as the old saying goes, nature never leaves a vacuum. There are always challenges and will continue to be challenges, just the same as mankind at the beginning of last year never realized in a matter of several months we would be faced with a pandemic of a disease of such lethality that we never ever seen something recorded like it in the past, even during the Middle Ages with the Black Plague. So with that, I say one or two last words, and they are ones of thanks and sincere appreciation to both you, Julie, to you, Cliff, and to you, Rick, for putting my name forward to be considered as the 2021 recipient of this award. It means a great deal to me, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this deeply felt honor. Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations, Dr. Timoney. Yeah, applause, applause, applause. I'm just going to read in case you couldn't see it in the chat room. Rory Carolyn posted in here that he wanted to congratulate you and then said you are a role model for expertise and generous sharing of your abundant gifts. And we have benefited so much from your continued contributions. So that was from Rory. And then I see another one in here that's from Jessica Norman. She says, Dr. Timoney, thank you for all you've done for our industry and for the horse. So keep those cards and letters coming, guys, and be sure to congratulate Dr. Timoney on a much deserved honor for this award. And so with that, I am going to wrap up our awards celebration for today. When we meet in person next year, hopefully, we are going to honor those that received an award last year and this year again at our in-person conference so that they can get all the accolades they so deserve. So with that, have a great afternoon. If you are interested, come back at 1 o'clock at the top of the hour for our next session, which is on our Youth Engagement Task Force. So thank you, everyone.